Welcome to Modi Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Tata to make iPhones in India with deal for Wistron business. India likely to appeal Qatar death sentence for aid in spy case. India, UKC trade deal possibly in December after poll results. India's tax squeeze on gaming and gambling is a losing bet. Shifting politics make India a hotbed for Israel-Hamas war misinformation. Tata to make iPhones in India with deal for Wistron business. Nikkei Asia. Indian conglomerate Tata Group is set to begin local production of Apple's iPhones by acquiring a unit of Taiwanese electronics manufacturer Wistron. Wistron plans to sell its Indian subsidiary to Tata Electronics for an estimated $125 million. The move will allow Apple and Tata to promote iPhones as made in India in line with the government's Make in India policy, which seeks foreign investment and aims to expand the manufacturing sector. In India, Chinese brand Xiaomi held the largest share in smartphone shipments last year, with Apple holding just 4%. However, expectations are high for the Indian market, which has a population of 1.4 billion. India likely to appeal Qatar death sentence for aid in spy case. Yahoo! The Indian government is considering an appeal against the death sentence given to 8 retired Navy staff members in Qatar. An outpouring of concern has taken place since the death sentence was handed down to the 8 men who were involved in training the Qatari Navy. The case is likely to prove a headache for the Indian government, which is already embroiled in a diplomatic dispute with Canada over the killing of a Sikh separatist leader in that country. India, UKC trade deal possibly in December after poll results. Bloomberg. India and the UK are not expected to announce a free trade agreement until after state elections conclude in December. Differences still remain over whether taxation will be included in an investment protection pact and the UK's demand for tariffs to be cut on electric vehicle exports to India. The deal, when concluded, would be a major milestone for both countries and could serve as a template for similar agreements with other nations, including the European Union. India's tax squeeze on gaming and gambling is a losing bet. Nikkei Asia. The Indian government has begun taxing the country's domestic gaming and gambling sector retrospectively. The move follows the Goods and Services Tax Council's decision in July to set the tax rate on all gaming and gambling-related activity at 28%, up from 18%, and to include the full amount that players wagered or staked in the tax calculation. The claims amount to more than 1.5 trillion Indian rupees, $18.1 billion, with some firms billed for amounts more than 10 times their annual revenue. Shifting politics make India a hotbed for Israel-Hamas war misinformation. Al Jazeera. Social media accounts in India have been spreading fake news and showing support for Israel during the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The rise of Hindu nationalist ideologies in India has led to anti-Muslim sentiment and a fascination with Israel's approach to defending itself against attacks from its neighbors. The Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has sought warmer relations with Israel due to concerns about terrorism. India has historically been supportive of the Palestinian cause and has recognized the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, as the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. However, in recent years, India has been inching closer to Israel, due in part to trade and innovation ties, as well as a shared concern about counterterrorism. Experts argue that the shift in India's foreign policy towards Israel has been most significant since Modi came to power in 2014. Modi has issued strong declarations of support for Israel during the recent conflict, with little mention of the plight of Palestinians, suggesting a shift towards a more pro-Israel stance. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the Hexaverse, here to bring you the latest news from the 6 Degrees world. Let's dive right in. First up, Tata Group, the Indian conglomerate, is set to start producing Apple's iPhones locally by acquiring a unit of Taiwanese manufacturer Wistron. This move will allow Apple and Tata to promote iPhones as made in India, in line with the government's Make in India policy. With the Indian market's massive population of 1.4 billion, this could be a game-changer for Apple's market share in the country. In another news, the Indian government is considering an appeal against the death sentence given to 8 retired Navy staff members in Qatar. This case has caused concern and could prove to be a headache for the Indian government, which is already dealing with a diplomatic dispute with Canada. It seems like India's international relations are in a bit of a rough patch lately. Speaking of international relations, India and the UK are expected to announce a free trade agreement, but not until after state elections conclude in December. There are still some differences to iron out, particularly regarding taxation and tariffs on electric vehicle exports. This deal could be a major milestone for both countries and may serve as a template for other agreements in the future. Now, let's talk about money. The Indian government has decided to retrospectively tax the country's domestic gaming and gambling sector. This move has caused quite a stir, with some firms being billed for amounts more than 10 times their annual revenue. It seems like India is taking a gamble with this tax squeeze, but only time will tell if it pays off. Lastly, shifting politics in India have made it a hotbed for misinformation during the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas. Social media accounts in India have been spreading fake news and showing support for Israel, fueled by the rise of Hindu nationalist ideologies and concerns about terrorism. This marks a significant shift in India's foreign policy towards Israel, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi issuing strong declarations of support. It seems like India is becoming quite the player on the global stage. That's all for today's news. Remember, these are just snippets of what's happening in our ever-changing world. It's important to stay informed and keep an open mind. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these stories. What do you make of Tata producing iPhones in India? Are you concerned about India's diplomatic disputes? And how do you feel about the shift in India's foreign policy towards Israel? Share your thoughts and questions, and let's have a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.